The time has come. We have reached game week. Week 0 is upon us. Farmageddon is taking place in Dublin this Saturday at noon. We are saving that preview for later this week, along with both of our college football playoff predictions and our preseason top 12 rankings. That's coming out later this week. Today, it's all about conference championship game predictions. This is mainly going to be an opinion-based episode who we think are going to make the respective Power Four conference championship games. For all of our other episodes, positional rankings, conference win totals, conference power rankings. Those contain a buttload of stats and analysis, so go check those out. This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. Before we get started, as always, make sure you like and subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. Make sure you're following us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And as always, we are brought to you by Frost Buddy, the best can cooler koozie on the market. It's a 10-in-1 koozie that keeps your drinks cold, man. Whether it's a traditional 12-ounce can, a slim seltzer can, Coke bottle, bottled water, glass bottle, you name it, man. They've got a ton of college football teams on there. I just happen to be rocking a brand new Indiana Frost Buddy here. Pretty sick for all you Indiana fans out there. I know we got a lot of Indiana subscribers, Indiana listeners. My wife got that for me for my birthday. It's pretty sick. Head over to frostbuddy.com/ATB. And when you check out, make sure you choose the 30% cash back option. You'll get an email after purchase, and they'll give you a sweet credit that you can use on a future Frost Buddy product. And they have what they're calling like these thick buddies. It's similar to a Stanley. My wife just got one. It's 50 ounces, and it has an insert that you can pop in like a Starbucks iced coffee in there too, and just carry it around. Like, it's pretty sick. Men, go to frostbuddy.com/ATB. Get your wife one of those, and they will love it. frostbuddy.com/ATB. Let's move on to the SEC. Gosh, where do we begin on storylines here, man? I mean, you've got Georgia coming back from an SEC championship game in a down year, an SEC championship in a down year last year. It's all Kirby did was nearly lose to Georgia Tech at home in 8 overtimes, but then go beat Texas twice and almost come back and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and ups and downs, roller coaster with the Georgia Bulldogs last year. Again, Texas coming back, reloading. Spoiler alert, I think they're going to be our number one team coming out later this week. They're the number one in the AP poll. They just have the most talent right now, I think, in the country. But they got to prove they can get it done against Georgia. They got to prove they got to go on the road to some tough environments this year, too. Alabama, obviously, Kalen DeBoer's year last year. Any other guy who's taken over in a job, not for the GOAT, and he wins 9 games his first year, that's a pretty solid year, right? But not for Bama fans. LSU, can they keep building on the momentum from Garrett Nussmeier and the offense, Blake Baker, second year of the defense. Those are kind of the top 4 teams right now. And then, who's going to be that team that sneaks up there like a Texas A&M last year, like a South Carolina, right? Who's going to be that team that kind of wedges their way into that championship game prediction? Because as you know, these conferences aren't all equal. The schedules aren't all equal. So someone's going to benefit from scheduling or injuries or something like that, where they kind of just wedge their way in and they're like a win and in situation in the last week of the season.
Yeah, I think too, man, it's just the quarterback position in the Southeastern Conference is also just a huge storyline because, you're breaking in new quarterbacks at some of the most premier programs in the Southeastern Conference. And I know some of these guys have been obviously there, like, obviously Arch Manning's been there for multiple years, but what is Arch Manning going to do for Texas? Can he live up to it? Can Gunnar Stockton be the type of quarterback that Georgia and Kirby Smart and that Mike Bobo offense that they want to run that system for them? Ty Simpson's been waiting his turn for years in Tuscaloosa and is getting the nod. Former 5-star, can he step up and be the man there in Tuscaloosa that they need him to be? Just be the point guard, be the game manager to let that defense and all the playmakers that's going to be around him work. And of course, then you've got like guys like DJ Lagway, who started as a freshman last year, did what he did. Nussmeier's the elder statesman. Again, he's only been a 1-year starter, but he's been around for a while. Lenore Sellers, he could put a team on his back and carry him a long way. Just the quarterback position in general, and also too got to mention the star transfer in Johnny Mateer. It's so intriguing, man, because if his game everybody's wondering, like, will his game transfer from Washington State to Oklahoma? Will that transfer like to the SEC and against the tough schedule they're going to play against? If it does, those good as Oklahoma's defense is going to be, and Jaden Ott, some of those pieces they're going to have around him on offense, bringing in OC Ben Arbuckle, that Oklahoma team's as dangerous as can be, man. These are some of the teams we're talking about that could be dark horses. So that leads me in. Who is a team that you believe is a dark horse? We'll start with you this time, Tyler. We're going to give you first crack at it. Who right now do you think is a dark horse that you wouldn't mind sprinkling a little cash on for possibility of competing for an SEC championship?
Well, I was almost crazy enough to go with Texas A&M. I can't quite get there with their road schedule. Their road games are tough, man. At Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, at Texas, obviously in the non-conference against Notre Dame. And they were 15-1. So I was like, I need a bigger shot. So I'm going to take a team that's 16-1, and I'm going to go Ole Miss. That's a team. I don't know. I don't know if they're a dark horse or not, but I feel like they're kind of being overlooked.
Yeah, they're dark. Yeah,
And
absolutely, they're a dark horse.
yeah, and as you can see in my SEC predictions, I've got them finishing fifth in a cluster of teams that are 9-3, but 5-3 in the conference. A lot of unknowns, Lane Kiffin has just absolutely transcended the program there to where, like, if they go 9-3, like that might be considered a down year, to some at Ole Miss. But the way he's lifted that program, I think if Austin Simmons turns out to be the real deal, dude, and like I think we put him sixth or eighth on our power rankings for our quarterbacks. If he is top 4 in the SEC, and if this defensive line pans out with a lot of homegrown talent on the defensive line, and if they can reload in the secondary, right? They lost a lot of guys in the secondary. If they can reload, they can be dangerous because they get very, very favorable schedule to begin the year. They don't play anybody really out of conference. That's kind of what it's funny when Lane talks about the Big Ten doing their conference stuff. It's like, buddy, you shouldn't be talking. You're not the one to be talking about that, scheduling nobody in the non-conference. At Kentucky, again, they lost to Kentucky last year. They should be focused for that one in week 2 this year. They get LSU at home in week 5. They get a bye week. They get Washington State. And then they've got 2 back-to-back road games. At Georgia is going to be tough. But, like, again, at Oklahoma, right? We're all banking on John Mateer and that offense and that defense to be revamped, and Oklahoma to take, the next step and improve on, the debacle that was last year. But if they don't, can Ole Miss go to Oklahoma and win that game? Sure. And then after that, you've got South Carolina, Citadel, and Florida all at home before you get a bye week, and then at Mississippi State. That's the 13th easiest schedule, or the 13th toughest schedule. So the 4th easiest schedule in the conference. And if Austin Simmons, like I said, man, if he's a dynamic playmaker and, he just slides right in there as the next great, Lane Kiffin quarterback, they can make some noise.
I don't disagree with you, man. I think that Ole Miss's offense is. I don't have any questions about their offense. I think Austin Simmons is going to be legit. Lane Kiffin's offense are always really good. He's at a top 5 offense every year he's been in, top 5 offense in the SEC every year he's been there. Defensively, if Pete Golding can keep that defense rolling, and they don't have to be as dominant as they were last year, but they can't just take a giant step back. That's where my worry is right now, is what is that defense going to look like without all the studs that they had last year? Man, I'm going to do it, dude. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take. I know everybody makes the 8-4 jokes about Texas A&M, but I'm looking at Texas A&M at plus 1,500, and I just think that Mike Elko, I believe in him and his ability as far as building that culture there at Texas A&M. Everything that you hear from all of the people that cover Texas A&M at a really high level talks about just how he flipped that culture upside down. Year 1 is establishing a culture. Year 2 is building off that and starting to build into what you're going to be there. And everywhere he's been as a defensive coordinator and then as a head coach at Duke, the improvements from year 1 to year 2 were pretty drastic. I expect that again. I love what they've done on offense, bringing in the pieces that they brought in, and Mario Craver from Mississippi State, KC Concepcion from NC State. They've got one of the best offensive lines, top 5 offensive line in the entire country. They're about 7 deep there. They've returned every single starter on their offensive line. It's year 2 for Marcel Reed. He knows he's the man now in this Colin Klein offense. Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels and Reuben Owens and E.J. Smith, that four-headed monster at tailback. I think they're going to run the football, be physical on offense, get the rock in the hands of those absolute burners and playmakers. And Mike Elko said at the end of that year last year that, basically paraphrasing, that if it's the last thing he does, he will make sure that defense doesn't look as cheeks as they did at the end of last year. And when I look at their schedule, like right now, I've got A&M going 9-3 on the year. As we sit here today, I have them losing. And dude, I think that game in South Bend is going to be a freaking, one of my favorite words to use here, war. And it's going to be a war. And at LSU and at Texas. Right now, that's the 3 games that I've got A&M losing. And I mean, if they've only got 2 losses in conference, it could very well come into play, just like, a lot of these super conferences where you have tiebreakers and stuff like that, what ends up happening. But do I think that A&M right now, as we sit here today, just there's no way they can play with LSU. There's no way they can play with Texas, and there's no way they can play with Notre Dame. I do not believe that at all. I do think they can play with all 3 of those teams. So, yeah, I like taking a shot at Texas A&M at plus 1,500 because if you can just get to the SEC championship game or any of these conference championship games, anything can happen in a one-game winner-take-all scenario.
Yep. Championship game, I have Alabama versus Texas, both finishing 10-2 and 6-2 in the conference. I think Texas is just too talented enough to get back there. I think they're going to drop one in Athens. I think Georgia's just going to continue to be their bugaboo, and it's just going to continue to be the thorn in their side until Sark can just prove he can go in and beat Texas or beat Georgia. But with the way the SEC schedules are, we may not see them play Georgia for the next 4 years. I don't know. So who knows? Alabama, I think that Kalen DeBoer is just too good of a coach, man. And we've talked about it all off season, and Ryan Grubb coming back home into Kalen DeBoer's arms in Tuscaloosa. And like you said, man, he's got his Robin to his Batman. And I just think we talked about it, man. Like I'm super high on Alabama. I'm super high on Ty Simpson. I'm not worried about Jam Miller missing, the first month of the season, first month and a half of the season. Like you said, it's Alabama. They've got studs at running back to replace him. Obviously, the leadership factor, he's probably a pretty big leader on that offense. But I just think Ty Simpson, we didn't have him in our top 8, post-spring quarterback rankings. And he's a guy that's just steadily climbed. And he's basically, you want to talk about, it's going to be fascinating if both these teams match up. Because you're going to be talking about Arch Manning versus Ty Simpson. And depending on how the years they have, it's going to be Manning. He's going to be talked about, can Arch Manning win the SEC, right? When you're going into the season, in my mind, these are the same guys. If their names were flipped, they would be the same guys. They're both former 5-star quarterbacks who have been in the system for multiple years, who've waited their turn. And, one guy's getting more pub because his last name's Manning. Like, it is what it is. It's not Arch's fault. It's not Ty Simpson's fault. I think just Ty Simpson, though, like he's going to have a point to prove this season. And I think that Alabama gets to the SEC championship game against Texas. And I'm taking the Tide to win the SEC. And that'll make it, I think, 11 out of the last 12 or 12 out of the last 13 years that either Georgia or Alabama will have won the SEC championship game. So much for parity in that conference. It's that whole, Alabama's holding everybody on their shoulders, right? Like everybody else. And like Kentucky's like, yeah, we won it again. Yeah, so
you love talking about that, man. You're if anybody wants to know what he's talking about, he's referring to when Tyler and I first became really good friends about 3 or 4 years ago. He said it drives him crazy when the SEC fans would chant, like when Kentucky or Mississippi State or somebody, sorry, you're catching strays there, will chant SEC. Yeah, it's funny. But man, I've got as the more things change, the more things will stay the same. Last year, Texas came in and made the SEC championship game right out of the gate. Obviously, with the way that they're recruiting, it won't shock me if Texas makes it back again this year or the following year, whatever. But I do not believe that's the case this year. I believe that it is Alabama versus Georgia. in the SEC championship game. I've got both Bama and Georgia going 11-1 this year in the regular season. Uh, yep.
Who are
And
those losses to?
who are the losses to? I think that Alabama will lose when they go to Georgia in Athens. And
Yeah, I don't. I think Alabama's going to march in there and make sure they know that
just
Daddy Bama is here and Kirby's our little boy again.
they're just going to steal their lunch money in Athens again.
Yeah,
Man, if
yeah,
that happens,
locker.
I don't know what Georgia fans, I don't know what they'll do if that happens. And I've got Georgia going into there's always that one game every year at least where the Black Voodoo Magic takes place in Jordan Hare
Yeah.
Stadium. And I think Auburn gets Georgia at Jordan Hare, and that's Georgia's only loss in the regular. So I agree with you that I think Georgia gets Texas and Athens. But I've got Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game, and I've got Alabama beating Georgia in a rematch from the regular season, and Bama taking Georgia down in the SEC championship game in Atlanta, and Alabama as SEC champions.
Once again, thank you guys for subscribing, commenting, liking, all that stuff on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Football season's right around the corner. If you're just getting back into it, man, we appreciate you listening. Where have you been all off season? We're here year round, man. We love hearing from you guys. Share this podcast, share the show with your friends. We're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on TikTok. Just go find us, man. We love to converse. We love to banter back and forth. You can call us stupid, man. We got thick skin. It's fine. Plenty of people have called us stupid recently. That's fine. So we appreciate you guys listening. For Lance Barton, I'm Tyler Noe. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.